Hi, Daily Dosers. My name is Kip. I'm one of the pastors here at North Coast. And as we're continuing our series on the names of God this week, it brought me to a childhood memory I had. One time I was supposed to be taking a nap, and instead I'd snuck over to my bookshelf and grabbed a book and was reading. And I remember my mom caught me, and she was like, "It's okay. You could be reading. You don't have to be taking a nap, but you can't get out of bed." And I still remember the book. It was One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish by Dr. Seuss. And that began me on a journey of having an affection towards Dr. Seuss. And this one book is called The Sneetches and Other Stories. And there's one little story. It wouldn't have been big enough for a book in itself. And so they added it to this book. But interestingly enough, Dr. Seuss himself, that's not his real name, talking about names. His name is actually Theodore Seuss Geisel. He goes by his middle name and added the doctor to it. He's not even a doctor, but we now know him affectionately as Dr. Seuss and all the many stories that he's written. And this one is called Too Many Daves by Dr. Seuss. Let me read it to you. Did I ever tell you that Mrs. McCabe had 23 sons and she named them all Dave? Well, she did, and that wasn't a smart thing to do. You see, when she wants one and calls out, "Yoo-hoo, come into the house, Dave," she doesn't get one. All 23 Daves of hers come on the run. This makes things quite difficult at the McCabeses, as you can imagine, with so many Daveses. And often she wishes that when they were born, she had named one of them Bodkin von Horn, and one of them Hoosfoos, and one of them Snim, and one of them Hot Shot, and one Sonny Jim, and one of them Shadrach, and one of them Blinky, and one of them Stuffy, and one of them Stinky, another one Put Put, and another one Moonface, and one Marvin O'Gravel Balloon Face, and one of them Ziggy, and one Soggy Muff, and one Buffalo Bill, and one Biffalo Buff, and one of them Sneepy, and one Weepy Weed, and one Paris Garters, and one Harris Tweed, and one of them Sir Michael Carmichael Zudd, and one of them Oliver Bolivar Bud, and one of them Zanzibar Buck Buck McFate. But she didn't do it, and now it's too late. And that's just a fun, silly story by Dr. Seuss, but I think it's interesting because it brings out a characteristic of what names are. You see, if you name 23 boys Dave, it doesn't give you a distinction between each one of them. And I think this carries over into what we're talking about, the names of God, because we see in Scripture over and over and over again the character of God, the names of God, the way that the people called out to him, cried out to him, identified him, and we have all of these wonderful ways of crying out to God as a result of it. And it made me want to go over to Exodus, because there's an account where we hear the first time where God identifies himself and gives himself his name. And it's found in the book of Exodus in chapter 3, starting verse 13. Moses has gone out into the wilderness. He's in Midian because he's fled Egypt. He's there tending sheep, and he comes across a burning bush, and God is calling out to him from the bush to go and tell Pharaoh to let his people go. And in verse 13 it says, "Then Moses asked God, 'Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you. And they ask me, what is his name? What should I tell them?' And God said to Moses, 'I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you.'" And in this little verse, we get this context where God self-identifies, and we get the term Yahweh. But in there, when he says, "I am who I am," unfortunately, too many times, the English language and the translations lose so much of what's really in the text in the original Hebrew. And in this one, if we were to expound that "I am who I am" statement, we'd almost have to say things like, "I am who I am, and I will be who I will be." It's kind of his essence is definitive. And there's so much more in there. And another way is to take those same words that he uses and look for other places in Scripture. And what I love is one of those places we find it is when he's talking about the storm on the Sea of Galilee. It'll say things like, "And there was a great tempest." There was a great storm. And what that means is that same usage of that word means is it was present. Not only did it exist, that it just is there, but it was present among you. You were in and around you. And that same idea of being in a storm, being present with a storm, is the same concept of who God is. You see, too many times we stop with "I am who I am," and we stop at "God exists." But there's a deeper meaning there that we can find and hold on to and find true for us as an encouragement, is that not only does God exist, but he's present. And we see this because when he frees them from Egypt and he takes them into the desert, what does God do with his people? He tabernacles. He comes and dwells among his people. And so we can take hope in knowing this. Not only does God exist, but God is present. He is with us, and he wants to abide with us. And so we need to abide with him. So I hope that encourages you. Know that not only does your God exist, but that he is present. Have a great day, Daily Dosers.